This video is sponsored by Blue Apron. Hi guys! In today's video I'm going to be building this Bluetooth speaker. It's made with maple and white oak. It has two rear mounted speakers, a little switch and a light. So let's get building. I wanted to go with mitered corners because it's just such a clean look. They can be a little tricky, I think, to get just perfect. And in the past, I used to use the miter saw for those cuts. However, I put together this simple jig for the table saw instead, and I found it a lot easier using that to get really accurate cuts, especially when cutting harder woods such as this maple. For the front-facing piece, I'm using white oak, and at first I wasn't sure how thick a wood I was going to use. I mean, I tried 3/4 inch, then 1/2 inch, and it just felt a little too thick, like it was blocking the speakers too much. So then I finally settled on 1/4 inch, and I had a piece of white oak already of that thickness, which was good because it's so nice and strong, so the white oak really fit for that purpose. Now I needed to ride the roundover bit's bearing on something, which is why I have this piece underneath with the same size hole cut in it, and that worked out really great. Next, I'm marking out the spaces for the switch and the light. So I wanted some nice contrast between the light maple and the interior piece, so I decided to use a cherry gel stain on top of the white oak. And yeah, I had to remember to do this after rounding the edges of the holes. And to hold the front piece in place, I'm adding a dado in all the maple pieces. And yeah, it's turned out to be a pretty snug fit. So once I had all the pieces prepared, I did a dry fit, and let me tell you, it's tricky getting it just right. Because the front piece fits so tightly in the dados, and you need to place it just right in order for the miters to line up, and doing this again really reminded me how mitered corners really aren't my favorite. They do look nice though when you get it right. So the speakers I'm using are rear mounted, which means there's no access to the electronics through the front, so I needed to add a few blocks to the back so that I could screw a back piece on. So I'm just drilling some holes and gluing a nut in each corner, and these I'll glue into the speaker case once it's prepared. Now I have cut a piece for the back here using the same stained white oak, and I'm just lining up the blocks to where they'll connect and drilling the holes in it. Now before moving on to the next step, let's take a quick break and make some lunch, because this video is brought to you by Blue Apron. Now, the first 50 people who sign up will get $50 off their first 2 weeks of Blue Apron, and there's a link in the description below, so go check that out. So I really like the idea of Blue Apron because when I'm working on stuff, I don't want to think about food, yet I still want to make sure that my family and I eat well, and Blue Apron delivers really fresh ingredients right to your doorstep, and everything is proportioned out so there's no waste. Perfect for the recipes that you get to choose. Oh, and by the way, the meals are really delicious, and it's fun to make things that you wouldn't make otherwise. Now the box comes refrigerated, so it's fine if you're not home when it's delivered. And now, as I'm living in the country, this works really well for us because I don't want to go out driving to get something to eat out, and I don't want to occupy my brain with planning meals and all that, so it's taken care of for me. Now, there are a couple of plans to choose from, and prices start as low as $7.49 per serving. There's no commitment, you can skip or cancel the service at any time. So pretty great, and I want to thank Blue Apron for supporting this channel, and make sure to check out the great deal in the description box below. Now, let's get back to building. Now, for the electronics, I'm using a Bluetooth speaker board, a set of 2-inch full-range speakers, a female plug, a switch, a 20,000 ohm resistor, and a 3mm red LED light. I began with connecting the light to the resistor and the switch, and I wanted the light to be pretty dim, which is why I used the 20K resistor. In the past, I made another Bluetooth speaker and I had a really bright light, and it was like way too bright. Every time you turned it on, it felt like it just lit up the room, and this time I just wanted it to be barely, like a very light glow. Then I simply connected everything together, the wires to the speakers and those wires to the speaker board, in line with the switch, the light, and the power plug. And I'll put all the products in the description below. Next, I wanted to start assembling, but I figured I should finish the front panel first, because once those speakers are in, I don't want to accidentally shellac those as well. Now, this is the hole for the power plug. It's in one of the side pieces. And then I attached the switch in the front and hot glued the light in from the back. Then, of course, testing to make sure it was still working right before screwing in the speakers. And then it was finally time for the glue up. And to be honest, I was a little nervous about this because I knew it was going to be finicky to glue it up just right. And once you start gluing, you know, the clock starts ticking. And I didn't want too much glue squeeze out, so I tried to be very careful and just apply a little bit. Of course, it's really important to glue the front panel in the dados as well, because the miter joints are pretty weak. And when you glue everything together like this, it really secures it up and makes it like a solid package or something, you know, much stronger. So then, after a bunch of small little corrections, I think I finally got it, and it looked pretty good. So one thing I realized after the fact was that I needed to cut one of those back blocks in half because the power plug location was right in the way. So I secured the power plug with some hot glue. Then I attached the speaker wires to the speaker board and hot glued the board in place as well inside the box. And at this point, everything was pretty much inside the box that needed to go in there, so I could glue the back pieces in place. Now, I always think little feet add a nice touch to these kinds of projects. Plus, it's nice to get the unit off the ground. So just cutting little maple blocks out. To chamfer the edges, I got an opportunity to use my mini plane, which is perfect for this application, and I so rarely get a chance to use it. To secure, I simply glued them in place and added some weight. Now for a finish, I first put on some shellac, and then I finished everywhere with some of my beeswax polish applied with steel wool for that very fine, smooth finish. And it's all done. So I really like the way this one turned out. The contrast between the woods, The rear-mounted speakers, I think, gives a very nice look. I really like not having to deal with making a grill or anything and screwing them in from the front. And I just love that you can create something like this where you can combine nice-looking woods and electronics and create something very custom. That's also quite nice. A lot nicer than most Bluetooth speakers you buy in the store. Since it's Bluetooth, you control everything from your phone or your MP3 player or whatever, your computer. And you can raise and lower the volume through your phone. Let me know if you have any questions about the build in the comments below. And I'll also put links in the description to all the parts that I used if you are curious. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Let's see, what should we listen to? Something else.
Well, that he's really just trying to promote the myth of... This is episode 190.
Fell roots in tin swag.
Come on, you guys again.
Makes all your dreams come true. The Creators Collective provides
the worst
information
intro,
not only
guys.
on woodworking, but metalworking.
So, of course, there's a huge amount of podcasts out there. So I think that it's a lot nicer listening to something like that on a nice speaker. So, building something like this, whether you're doing it for your shop or in your home, is kind of nice.